All right, welcome back to another live session post BBD walkthrough, or I guess post Rise of the Digital CEO. So, James has completed his third and final Rise of the Digital CEO. And, as you probably imagined, probably didn't expect that, each one would be probably 3 hours, maybe still be going on. I had to get ready for this. But it is quite a lot, and there's quite a lot there. So today, I really kind of wanted to go through and answer any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free, to pop them in the comments, put them in there. I'm kind of trying to keep track of the comments. But I also wanted to, kind of jump in here and maybe start answering some of the most frequent questions that we get. Um, so that's kind of the plan for today. Last time we actually did the live demo and course walkthrough. So if you go into the community and go to the meetup section, if you want to see the video before, go in there and check that out. And that's where you'll find the walkthrough from before. But today I want to kind of dive in to some of the most asked questions and the questions I've seen the most, and then even some of the stuff that James has indicated that he sees a lot. But question number one is, if I get stuck, will somebody be there to help me? And I guess, maybe the question back to you, the question you should be asking yourself is like, what does stuck mean? Like what's catching you up? Because there's so much to that a lot of times we just get, kind of put our hands out and say, hey, I'm stuck. Like I don't know what to do next. And I would probably tell you that from the get-go, you may not have a really crystal clear plan or vision of where you're trying to go with this thing. So if you get stuck, first, like kind of reflect back on yourself and like, what does that mean? Do you not know where you're going? Or do you just not know the next step? Or if there's a piece of the puzzle that's in there that feels like, I just don't know what to do with this. It could be, one of a bunch of different things. So the program itself, BBD, is really built in such a way where you can go, and look at each of one of these things individually, right? And like, here's the step, here's the next step, here's the next step. So the question is, have you tried something and it didn't work, or you just don't know what to do? So that's kind of the first question I would ask yourself and see if you can come to the answer. So if you still feel like you're stuck, in BBD, there is a Facebook group that goes along with it. So it's only BBD members. But what's really cool about the Facebook group is that it's also BBD members from years past that have done this. And kind of like I mentioned before, like when you're in the group, you get to stay in the group, right? So year after year, you're kind of in the group. And what that means for you is that one, you'll find that there'll be questions that you ask that somebody that's already been through this will quickly pick up and answer the question. Number two is that James is in the group watching, but he also has a bunch of coaches that he's hired that their entire job is to jump in the group and answer the questions. And sometimes it's, sending you back to the course and saying like, hey, yeah, this is covered in this module. And there is a spirit of, try and find the answer first. There is actually a search function in BBD, but try and find the answer. Ask yourself the question, put it in the group, and then what you'll really find is that there's a wealth of knowledge that comes from folks that have done this before, right? So maybe they did it last year or the year before, and maybe they're in a different phase of their business, so they're going through BBD again. But not as in like, hey, I didn't do it last year, but we got our niche and we've got our offer, and now we want to kind of start scaling and we want to take it to the next level. But a lot of times there's probably not a question you're going to ask that hasn't already been answered or solved for, and you'll get a wealth of responses back. So I would say if you feel like you get stuck, you can get your question answered. But a lot of times it's retrospective and just saying, I don't know what to do next. That just probably means that your vision isn't clear enough that you know exactly where you're trying to take this thing. So that's one thing. Let's see. Next question. I'm not sure if I'm too much of a beginner for BBD. I don't have a product. I don't have a list. I don't have an audience. I have nothing. And for those of you that are out there that are in that situation, I will tell you this, like you're actually in the best place that you can be. And the reason being is that there is no there's nothing holding you back from trying messages and trying different things because you don't have this audience already, this big group of people, this email list that's out there looking for you to provide something to them based off what you've already purchased or like what you've been following. So if you're in a situation where you have nothing, there is an attraction module, which we covered in the previous kind of walkthrough video of the course, that shows you how to do that. But even better, for those of you that are out there trying to figure out, like, hey, is this really worth it for me? I actually put this whole process to the test and I recorded it, and that's in the companion video. So a lot of you are coming through this, have subscribed or in the course itself. And if you haven't seen my kind of companion course that goes through the first 100 leads, I strongly recommend that you go do that. And the reason being is that I went through this from absolute scratch, from zero. Like I have a very, very niche podcast and group of folks that follow me in that space. And it's for limited partners. And these are individuals that are looking to invest passively in large real estate and private equity type deals. This is not an audience that I would like to put this type of content in front of because it's just not what they're looking for. So I started this Ask Who First channel and all of that stuff with zero. Literally, created a Facebook page, fired up active campaign. I followed the instructions in there in the BBD course, and then followed it to a T and went through the first 100 leads process. And it was a little bit of trial and error. And there were parts where it was painful because I wasn't getting responses. Then I tweaked something, and then all of a sudden I started getting responses. So the reason I'm telling you all this is that, one, you're in a great place because you can actually go test the market and see what is going to happen for you, right? You can see what's happening out there in the market and what people are responding to, and then you can build your course and all that information around that. But now, like if you already have a list and you already have people that you're working with, you're going to have to be a little bit selective and kind of pushing it out there because like you want to make sure you build your brand. And then lastly, again, like I just really, really want to highlight this point is that I followed the first 100 leads process, which is kind of the initial piece of BBD, but it's also free. Like James gives that out there as kind of a lead magnet to get people interested in the course. So, you can get in there and see the course for free, but I followed it and built my first 100 leads, right? Off of this whole concept of how to add video to your podcast. So you're in a great spot if you've got nothing, and BBD is a great tool to help you do that. And as a matter of fact, the free piece of it, the part that he gave away, is what's going to help you start building your list. So just kind of extrapolating the value in what he gave away to what's left in BBD, I think you're going to find that it's a phenomenal resource for you. Let's see. Kind of thinking about the next question is taking it in a different direction. I'm not sure if BBD is right for me. I've been at a plateau for a couple years, generating below six-figure launches. I don't want to break through. Is BBD going to work for me? So this is a question that's asked by somebody that's already kind of in this business and not just trying to get it off the ground. And again, so like what's nice about BBD is if you're really just like, hey, what is my niche? That's what we just talked about. Do I have a good niche? Does this make sense? It has ton of material for that, right? And then you're saying, okay, I have a niche, I have an offer, but it's not really moving. Then that's kind of the next piece of it, which is offer alignment, right? So getting your offer dialed in and making it what James would call irresistible. So if you have an offer that's out there and it's selling, but it's not selling at the level that you want, well, you've got social proof that it's working, then it's probably a function of your systems and your processes. And there's a lot in there. I'm going to tell you, like, there's a lot. Even in kind of the first 100 leads, like I hit a wall that probably, tripped me up for about a month, right? 3 weeks to a month of like, how to get the right landing page out there that looked good, that was like hitting the right points. It was hard, right? And there's technical aspects of it. So the other thing that he really goes into is trying to find how to be really who you are supposed to be in the business, as opposed to the expert on everything, right? So there's this other aspect of BBD that I think is really important is when you're getting into it and you want to think about what should you be spending your time on. It's not like formatting emails and email blast and thinking about exactly the right way and the grammar that needs to go in your social media post and all that. It's about the creative. It's about your messaging. And I think that, what he tries to articulate is that when you let yourself, right, who are you? What are you actually trying to do and help people with? When you let yourself out of this box, magic will happen because like people are seeing the true you and the value that you can bring. But what most people end up getting, really getting stuck on, quote, quote, get here gets the stuck stuff, or, make the mistake of is trying to be all of those things. And what happens when you're all of the things in your business, it doesn't work very well, right? Like you're just kind of average or below average on all of it. And then the stuff that you really wanted to do, and like the course that you're creating and the information that you're trying to share, like that's getting watered down too, because it's like, oh, man, I'll get to that when I can. So kind of the answer, really the long-winded way of answering the question of like, is BBD right for me if you already have a product? It absolutely is, because what you've already proven is that you have something that's sellable. You just need to figure out how to unlock the value. So one of the things he cautions the most on, and maybe BBD isn't right for you if you're not willing to change. It'll feel strange when you try and do different things because you've been doing something for a couple years, and you in your mind you probably think you know what you're doing, but the reality is you really don't. And you know that because you're questioning yourself and asking whether or not you should get in BBD, but you have to also basically give it away, right? You have to say, like, not give the course away, but like just get out of your own way and let it go and say, okay, I'm willing to do what he says in the course to try and make this tip. And that's like psychology of what your sales page should do. Like the repetitions and how you should get this stuff out of the market and how you should test and try and tweak and get these things back and get feedback, right? Like the ninja survey, like getting feedback. There's so many really cool things that you can do that you've probably never done, but you have to be willing to try. And if you've been in kind of a groove for years, or several years or whatever, it's going to be hard. So you gotta challenge yourself on that. So the short answer is, it's absolutely got what you need to kind of keep taking it to the next level, but you got to be willing to do it. All right. And then the next question we get a lot of is, I don't know if I have what it takes. I bought so many courses and I really don't have anything to show for it. So, the first right question that's in there is like, you don't know if you have what it takes. So what does that mean specifically to you? What would be the clarifying event for you to know that like you do have what it takes, right? So I think if you can first decide what that is, right? What is going to clarify it in your mind that you have what it takes? And then write that down, right? And then you can say, can I get to that, right? Can I figure out if I do have what it takes based off of this clear definition that I have? And then, the other thing that I really want to point out, which I think is probably a little bit more of a direct answer here, is that like BBD is not a course, right? It's actually like this program, and there's like a million different videos and everything that's in here. And inside BBD, there's a ton of different options based on where you are in your business, like where to start, what to do, how to launch, how to try different things. So unlike most courses, which is a prescribed kind of like do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, if you found in previous courses, one, that you didn't do it, like or you didn't get all the way through, you just kind of gave up, like that's on you, and you need to figure out if that's something you can do. But maybe what will alleviate some of that issue here is that there's so many different options of how to do it, right? So it's not like you launch and you launch exactly this way. There's like 11 different launch guides on how to launch, right? So if one of those you really don't feel comfortable with, one of these you will, right? And they don't all have to be live launches. There's the webinar launch, right? Which would be something like this, where you're out and you're talking and you've got a group of people that are watching and have questions. and you're going to be talking, right? And if you're not comfortable with doing that, there's the recorded webinar launch, right? Which is would be similar to this, but it wouldn't be live, right? There's video launches where you're not doing it. There's the evergreen, right, where you kind of put it all out there and set it and forget it. Now, again, he doesn't necessarily recommend that process, but all of these things are in there. And then there's the monetize before you make it, which is let's see if people are willing to pay for it before you even put it out there, and then you create the course live with people and get their feedback, and then based on that feedback, then you turn around and make the final product course that you want that's got all of the feedback, but along the way you've got a lot of testimonials and people that appreciate all the work that you've helped them with. So I think that one, if you're a collector of courses, back in the old days, like when I first started investing, I guess, in my education, they used to give you a book, right? And it was basically a binder, and it had a bunch of CDs in it and workbooks and pages. And, those would go home and set up on your shelf. Like they used to talk about having those things on your shelf in your library, but now like it's just going to be on your computer. It's going to be a link somewhere. But if you're a collector of courses, you got to ask yourself, like, why are you not finishing them? Or if that's the reason, like that's on you, and you need to get that question answered. But BBD is not really a course. It is just a series of different ways to go about launching and then where you are in your business. So like I said, there's not just one way to do anything. There is probably a manner in here that is going to work for you, that feels good for you, that either pushes you to grow or like lets you stay just comfortable enough to actually do it. So that is the reality. But you have, like I think the answer to every single question so far, like the short answer is you have to be willing to try it. And I think that one of the analogies that really stuck with me is, it's if James talks about taking you shopping. You go into a store and you're looking at clothes, and I don't like doing this, but every once in a while you have to go get some new clothes, and you're changing. The styles are changing. You got to do a little something. You got to go in and you got to try stuff on. And you try something on. You stand in front of the mirror and you're like, I don't like the way this feels, or like this looks great. This feels great. Like this is it. This is what I was looking for. But in that process, you're trying things on and you're taking it off, like what you don't like. And that's what you kind of got to do with this program is get in there and try some of this stuff on. And if you don't like it, try something else, right? And those are those options out there. But I really appreciated when he explained that, because a lot of times these courses and programs that you get, like you get to a point you're like, you know what? I don't like that. I don't like the way that feels. And therefore, like, you stop. And a lot of people stop. And I think what he's done to overcome that is to say, like, there's not just one way of doing it. There's a myriad of different ways and a bunch of different ways you can do this, like based on where you are in the business. So be willing to get in there and try it. And if you can do that, and if you can commit to yourself that you're willing to try and push, then you'll try something and you'll see, you'll get feedback, right? Sometimes, like with me, again, going back to this course, the first 100 leads, I tried some things and got really strange results. I put some ads out there, put some stuff out on social media, and I mean, I got some really like awful comments, like some really strange stuff. And then, I came back and I said, okay, the first reaction a lot of times is, man, like, I'm not good at this. Like, this isn't my thing. People don't like me. But I said, you know what? I'm going to take that as feedback. And the feedback was that was not the right way to do that. So I changed what I did and I tried again. And I got much better results. And we took that and then we tweaked it, right? And then I've got, a couple of VAs helping me, which I learned how to do through this program. And we made some tweaks and we started seeing some better results. But it was feedback. Every piece of that was feedback. Like, this is working. That clearly didn't work. And then through that process, we made success. But it was not easy. And like the first try is probably going to be pretty poor. Like, you just got to get over that. The second try might have similar results, but you just have to keep going. Try it again. Get feedback and just look at everything that you do as feedback. Like, nope, that didn't work. It's like putt, right? Like, you hit it at the whole thing, like, didn't work, you just hit it again. Like, keep trying, and eventually you'll start to see what's working, but it's all about the reps. And that's what you have to do in this program to be successful is, like, try it, get your feedback, make a change, try it again. And if you can look at it with that kind of healthy skepticism, I think that you will see the results, but you got to be willing to try. All right, so the next question is is BBD updated? And do folks get the updated training, or do they have to buy back in every year? Okay, so that's actually a really good question, because I have several programs that I've invested in where, like, as they update it, the expectation is you can come back in as like an alumni member or whatever, and maybe you get a nice discounted price, but you have to invest again. In this case, like, you just get it, right? So anytime there's an update or as it grows, you're still in the program. You still get to be a part of the Facebook group. Like everything, it's like once you're in the BBD family, you get to stay in the BBD family. And there are other, additional levels. And when you get into BBD, like you'll start to hear about like the ascension model, about like, you start at the bottom, like this is your baseline offer, and then maybe here's one that's a little bit up. So James has different levels of which you can get into. So there's BBD. And then as we talk about, what's the next level, it's actually called next level, right? Which is basically like BBD on steroids. It's the same, by the way, keep in mind, it's the same content. It's just more like structured coaching and a programmatic approach to working with you more as an individual on top of BBD, right? So like you don't have to go to the next level. And then there's like mastermind groups and things that he does that, are at the pinnacle of this thing. But there's always, every time they make an update, it just gets pumped into your BBD portal and you have access to it. And then there's the Facebook group, which you have access to. And what you'll also find is that like once you've kind of solved some of these problems and you get into the Facebook group, you may find, like, me at times where somebody has a question like, oh, I just solved that one. I'm so excited to share, like, hey, I did this. Like, that's the community that's kind of built around this. And again, because he lets people stay in the community, in the group, and kind of grow, their business as they kind of move through the stages, you get the benefit of that, and everybody does. So, frankly, he does too, because he's basically got, alumni that have moved and made progress that are then sharing what they've been through. And a lot of times that's really relevant for the newer folks in the group that are, hey, I just tried this, and this is what I got. Like, what do you think? And they're like, well, I just went through that. Like, let me share how I got through that. And so you'll always have it, and that is what's great. And if as you kind of move through the process, like you're starting to see real results, and you want to move up in this kind of world, then he also has these next level type things that you can invest in. And a lot of people do that, right? They go through BBD, they get a modicum of success, and they feel like they're moving, and they're like, hey, I want to accelerate this faster than I'm doing on my own. And that's kind of where next level is, because then you have somebody kind of like a coach, working with you over your shoulder to kind of help. So I hope that helps you understand. But like, yes, BBD is yours. It's yours forever, I guess, as long as this stuff is out there. And I will tell you, even in the, basically I started following James last year before I invested. So over the course, like, I've seen this thing grow, and I've seen improvements, and, the communications, and, he's taken some things and he's condensed it and made it a little bit more concise, and he's taken other things and he's expanded it, he's added stuff. And every year through this process, there's some cool bonuses that go along with being a member of BBD that like are just add-ons. So a lot of those you get. So hopefully that answers your question, is that, you're in BBD for life. You have access to it. And because of the way it's not a course, right? It meets you where you are at a certain point in time. You get to grow with it, right? So next year you'll have different questions than you do this year, assuming that you do what you're supposed to this year. All right. Here's another one. Like, I'm zero techie. Can somebody, or like, will there be help with the techie part of the business? I really like this question, because this is something that's actually been a little bit of an Achilles heel to me, is that I am not super, super techie, but I am I'm very capable and functional when it comes to these types of things. And the reason I say that's my Achilles heel is that, like, I will jump in, and I've done this in the past. I'll jump in and try and figure this stuff out. And for the most part, I can generally get it to work. But what I've really learned in this past year, and really kind of going through this process, especially of like documenting and recording my results for the first 100 leads program, as I kind of go and launch this stuff, is that even when I am able to get something across the finish line, like it's not great. For example, sending out a batch email, you may be like, how hard is it to send out an email? But there's like formatting, and there's, how does that look? And then there's the way it reads, because like I'll write an email and it makes a ton of sense to me because it came just dumped out of my brain. And then you read it and you're like, oh, it makes total sense, right? Because it just came out of your brain. But sometimes like having somebody else like either take your thoughts and help you put it in there and format it and like rearrange it and then be like, hey, what were you trying to say here? Makes a world of difference. And setting it up and scheduling it and making sure that like, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. And a reminder of that, right? Like there's just so many things that go. It's not like just sending an email to somebody, right? Like there's a lot to it. And that's a very simple example. When you get into the landing pages, like if you've been in the companion course and you watch lesson 11, you can see like that I beat my head against the wall on the landing page. And I will say frankly that I think James undersold the complexity of like getting a landing page that look good, because like he'll give you a template, you can use it, and you're like, I can figure this out. It doesn't look hard, and there's Instapage where you can move things around, and it's pretty expensive. And at the end of the day, like I did that, and I spent a week working on it, and I looked at it, and I was like, I cannot send that out. Like it doesn't look good. And again, part of that is because I was comparing it to his page, which was professionally done, and has his 16 years of experience versus something that like I was able to kind of like put together with some Canva images and some pictures of me and pointing at stuff. Like it just didn't look good. And it having somebody using the how to hire a virtual assistant in the BBD course, like having somebody to help with that, like just made tremendous difference in my life, right? Like they look better, they go out, they're scheduled, like all of these things just happen. And they're much better than I could have done. And frankly, it gave me a lot of time to really focus on the content. And like I underestimated like how much work like putting the content would be, because like once you start recording and you hit the record button and you get to a point, you're like, okay, boom, I covered this point in the outline. Then you're like, oh, but you know what? We should probably also think about that, because that was a question that came up in this process. So when I was outlining, I just a little bit of a tangent, like when I was outlining my companion course for BBD for the first 100 leads, like I was like, I'll just kind of follow along with his videos, and then I'll do it. But then you get in, you do it, and you'll realize that 11 has 3 videos or 3 sections, because like I tried what he said, it didn't work for me, right? And I tried something else and I had some results, right? And then like I finally figured it out and I did it, right? Like it takes time, and I think that that's what you'll figure. And I would rather spend my time doing that than be like, okay, oh man, I got to get this email out because it's gonna work. And then the landing page, like I got to, there's just a typo on the landing page. I got to go back in there. Like there's a lot to it. So on the techie side, kind of closing this question out after a little bit of a tangent there, is that there are steps on how to do it in the program. And he gives you the tools that he uses, and he kind of shows you how he does it. My advice would be to say, take those processes and go out and find a VA that can do this for anywhere between, probably $5 to $8 an hour. And they can do it like 5 times faster than you, and it looks a lot better. And then like you're just looking kind of back in over it and be like, ooh, let's tweak a couple of these things, and like then it's good to go. That's how you get through this, right? It's not about doing it by yourself. But there are instructions. Like if you want to try and do it, my advice is, figure out what you're really good at, and then draw a circle around everything else that comes in these processes and that you're not, and find somebody very quickly that can help you with it. And it will give you a chance. That's all you need, is a chance to let yourself out, right? Like let the people in the marketplace meet you, right? The person that they want to have this like one-on-one, whether it's coaching or a course relationship with. But when you're like buried in the details, like I found that like I was getting stuck doing stuff that was not really helping you, right? Frankly, it's you get to where you need to be, like in your business or your decisions with BBD. It was like just tedious, right? And I was starting to feel rushed, and like the time was starting to get real compressed. But when I brought in some help, like I was able to say, okay, I can take a deep breath and then actually make this thing happen. So that's kind of it on the techie front. As per usual, like if you have any questions, I haven't seen the others pop up, but if you have any other questions, put them in, put them in the community and I'll answer your questions. Number two, if you have a real like pointed one-on-one type question, I'll take that call. And I want you to make a good decision here. So I've got a Calendly link. You should have gotten an email for it, but if you need it, like send me a comment on either in the community, in the Facebook group, YouTube page, whatever. Send me say, hey, I just want to talk to you for a few minutes. Like I will send you a link. We can jump on a video call like this if you want to actually like jump into BBD and kind of poke around and be like, hey, I saw this, or like, does it have this? I will gladly do that. Or if you just want to jump on a quick cell phone call and just say, hey, what's happening? Like we can do that as well. But I want to make sure that that's available to you because it is an investment. But I think it's a great investment if you are ready to make it work for you. If you're not, like hang on to your money and just keep spinning. But if you're ready to kind of push forward with your online venture, or you're ready to figure out how to communicate, like this is the place to be. And I'll close kind of out, going back through the process of why I joined BBD originally. And the answer is that I joined BBD because I wanted to learn how to better communicate with my audience. Like I wanted to reach them. And there's so much to the communication aspects in BBD, and James talks about it all the time. So I would strongly recommend that you jump in if you're ready to kind of work on your communications and you want to launch something and you want to like actually see results and then understand how to interpret that feedback and course correct and make improvements and like continue to grow your business. 1% changes, every day, every week, cumulatively add up very, very quickly. And that's what you need to really ask yourself is to say, like, is this what I want to do? Like, do I want to make small improvements? Do I want to grow? And if you do, there's something in here for you in BBD. If you still have questions, like I said, reach out. You should have gotten an email, or you will get an email from me if you're in the community already. Then that'll set you up for the one-on-one consultation. If for some reason you're watching this and you're not in the community and you found it on like one of our pages, there should be a link under this video to get into the community and the group, and you can schedule something with me. But I hope this has been helpful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'm available. I guess kind of closing this out. So today was the last day of the Rise of the Digital CEO. So the live trainings are now done. But the good news is twofold. Is one, that the recordings are still available. So if you have not been able to participate in those, like get it back in the community, go in there for the Rise of the Digital CEO. There's a link for you in the companion course under resources. You can pull that up and then go get the replays. And then two, the other thing is that they're actually creating basically summary videos and a summary podcast of the Rise of the Digital CEO by day. And I'll get those out to you in the group as well. So I'll put those out probably in the resources section of the companion course. So you have all of those if you want to get into it. And then cart opens, so you can only purchase this thing between Monday and Thursday of next week. So cart opens next Monday. My recommendation is if you think this is for you, jump in and get it. He does typically have some like special like early buyer bonuses. And just one little aside is he says that almost like 80% of the market and the people out there wait until the very, very last minute because like that's human nature. So what he does is he says if you have made the decision and you jump in like the first day or the first half of the first day, I don't know what it is, he will give you a special additional bonus. So that's something that you won't know about probably until it's too late. He might even not even tell people and say like, hey, for the early adopters, like, this is what you're going to get in addition. I don't know that he's going to do that necessarily again, but he has done that in the past. So like, there's no reason to think that like he might not. So if you're going to do it and you've already made up your mind, just go ahead and get it early because you might get some extra stuff. And sometimes that's some of the other courses that he has. He'll throw something in. But other than that, I hope this was helpful. Enjoy your weekend. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's schedule one-on-one time if you want to. Like I said, we can do it on the computer. so we can dive into the course and we can talk kind of face to face, or we can just take a phone call. But that link will be in the companion course. So the link under the video here should take you to where you can sign up for that. And then let me know, and we will talk to you soon.